Hey everyone, Keith here. So I played 20 hours of Hellpoint and I'm kinda done. So I thought I'd give you my take on why this game can't get out of mixed reviews on Steam. Before I get too far in, I wanted to show you this wonderful self-aware line from the game itself. I apologize for inflicting this hardship upon you, but it was necessary. I believe they call that foreshadowing. So let's start with the combat. Combat, if you think of it as a two-pillar system, what you can do and what your enemies can do, what you can do is actually pretty good. You can light attack, strong attack, dodge, block, there's a stamina bar. It's Dark Souls, right? And that part is actually pretty good. Where the game falls down initially is the enemy part of that equation. Enemies kind of fall into two camps. They're either incredibly face-rolling easy or kind of cheap and fast and difficult to hit without taking damage yourself. Let's start with the easy enemies first. So I'm 20 hours in and I'm still fighting enemies that are essentially humanoid and are very staggerable. Is that a word? They stagger easily if you just simply light attack them over and over again, even if you're out of stamina yourself. You don't believe me? How about this enemy? How about this enemy? How about this enemy? Is this bit old yet? How about this enemy? You get the idea. So this is happening very late into the game where there's still no challenge and you can just R1 spam your way to victory. So if your right index finger is very strong, you can beat Hellpoint almost definitely. On the other hand, though, the mini-bosses in the game are very fast, very difficult to strike without taking damage yourself, and I'm a fairly seasoned Souls-like player, and I found these enemies to be almost cheap feeling. I was very annoyed by them. So it's the disparity in difficulty and not like this slow, nice ramp of difficulty, which I found very frustrating. Bosses are kind of just an extension of mini-bosses as far as that goes too. I wasn't too impressed. I find them, again, to be very, very cheap. So what ends up happening is they do a lot of attacks that are extremely hard to dodge, extremely hard to read, and so you end up going back and forth between the spawn point and the boss door. You end up knowing that hallway or whatever like the back of your hand until you finally get to a point that you can figure out a way to sort of break through and hit the boss without taking damage yourself. And so you're just waiting for that one attack to come up that you know how to counter. And I just never felt this way in another Souls-like game. The Neo and Surge and all the Dark Souls and Elden Rings, this didn't feel so monotonous. This felt very formulaic, and I really, really didn't like it. So let's stop dunking on combat for a second and talk about Hellpoint's unique black hole clock mechanic. And I don't want to get kicked off of this platform, so I'm going to say it again nice and slow. It is the black hole clock mechanic. Now, this feature is based on an idea that the space station where the game takes place is orbiting a black hole. The clock, sure, let's call it a clock. The clock on your HUD tracks this orbit and changes the game's environment accordingly. Those changes could be that there are additional bosses or boss encounters. There's additional mini-bosses around the map. You can get to new places while the orbit is in a special place. So it's unique and cool and it changes your game. The problem is it's not explained at all. So what happens in practice is you're playing, you're trying to get through a level, and suddenly there's more guys that kick your ass when you're trying to just do your thing. What happened to me once is my first time through a new place, the black hole clock was kicking off. So I saw what I thought was the boss. I died the first time and I almost killed the boss, and so I was all excited and I'm gonna get him on the second try. But by the time I got back there, the orbit was no longer in the black hole area, so I just thought the boss went away. This is before I looked it up because, again, it's not explained at all. So for me, it was just confusion. Not cool, confusion. I almost wish I knew what was going on because it's a system I would have enjoyed exploring with and interacting with more if I just wasn't so lost all the time. And when this happened, as well as some other things, I felt like I had to have a browser up on my second monitor to play this game, and I hate doing that. I love playing all games blind, certainly Souls-likes blind, right? You want to experience bosses without spoilers and things, but I felt like with this game, you just had to have a browser open. I just had to have Fextra open the entire time. I'll give you another example. There's another part of the game where if your character gets a debuff, the camera zooms out and starts like fish-eyeing and trying to get you all nauseous. But I didn't know what was going on, so I just thought my video card was shitting the bed. so I don't know, man. I think they were trying to make the game like unique, but it was just more confusing. I wish I knew what was going on because I would have enjoyed it more instead of thinking that my computer was gonna die. The game has this other mechanic where when you die, a clone of you appears at that place that you have to fight, which actually was kind of cool, except for sometimes the clone just sits at the spawn point, essentially like a bonfire, like just sits there and doesn't do anything. I don't know. Is there a reason? I didn't look this part up. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's a lore reason. I don't know, man. If you're anything like me, you love RPGs, especially Souls-likes, because of the progression, right? You start off as this little hollow peasant, whatever, and you end up being a super god that can kill anything. That's fun. That journey is fun. In this game, the progression sucked, to put it bluntly. I was, again, in this playthrough, probably about 10 hours in or so, after doing a lot of exploring, and I was still using the same weapon that I started the game with at the very beginning. They literally drop a weapon at your feet. And I found other weapons, but I found them all to be lousy. So thinking that I was missing something, I went to Fextra and I started looking up things, including the weapon I had, and it says, could reasonably be used as your primary weapon throughout the entire game. Well, that's not very fun, is it? Leveling up didn't feel impactful. I kept pumping strength because that's what this leveled with. And it didn't seem to make that big of an impact, which was really frustrating. And between all my playthroughs, I got 19 hours in before I realized that I could even level up my weapons. And that doesn't say a lot for me, but I have played a lot of Souls-likes before, and I've never had that in the past. So it might say a lot about the UI and explanation for this game, like it's non-existent. It was bad. Also, if you're someone that likes various builds in these games, you're probably going to be disappointed here too. Essentially, there's strength, reflex, cognition, and foresight, which kind of translates to other games like strength, dexterity. Cognition is the use of guns, and foresight is the use of magic, so whatever. But long story short, there are strength weapons, and there are reflex weapons. In about, again, this playthrough is a little over 10 hours, I found 2 guns total, and I found nothing for foresight. And before someone spams me in the comments, I know that in the beginning of the game, you can like run to this really random outdoor area that you shouldn't go to find a foresight magic, but no one's gonna do that blind unless they look this up. So for the most part, even though you can have builds, you're not going to invest in anything besides strength and reflex, or strength and dexterity. And it's just limiting a lot about what your character can be, which again, kind of sucks. There is some other things in the game. There's an Omnicube, which you can attach certain powers to. I used a flashlight more than anything else. I found that really useful. So that was kind of cool, but I wish there was more. In other games, there's a lot more, and I feel like this was really, really lacking. I'll also touch on the story, I guess, for what there is. It's not great. It's convoluted. Now, I shouldn't say all Souls-like game, but certainly Dark Souls' story is super convoluted, but it's a super fun game that a lot of people think is flawless, and you have a lot of NPCs and a lot of items with a lot of interesting item descriptions. So if you fall in love with the game, then you start learning more about the lore naturally through, again, NPC dialogue and item description. This game is frustrating, so you are not sort of compelled to do that. And on top of that, there are not many items, which sucks. And there's not a whole lot of NPCs, which sucks. So there's not a lot to read, and there's not a lot to care about anyway. So long story short, I decided that the story was I was some half-naked man who was born in a little jacuzzi tub, and now everything's trying to kill me as I wear different hats. I don't know, it sounds fine. That's the story. That's Hellpoint. The most frustrating part for me, though, is the fact that I feel like all of this could have been fixed if they did more testing. I don't mean bug testing. I didn't really run into that many bugs, but like user testing. I feel like if they had a beta test or an early access period or something, after the 500th person said, hey, your game is dark as shit and I'm dying more to this bad jumping and platforming mechanic than any enemy in the game, I feel like they would have fixed something. I don't know. I suppose I should say something good. So I honestly did really appreciate the sci-fi theme. You know, how many games have you played, especially Souls-likes, that are like, I am a knight and I have armor with a sword and I'm gonna fight the dragon. Like, there's so many of those. So seeing a sort of demonic / sci-fi theme was pretty cool. I liked how enemies like crawled out of vents and stuff, and that was kind of it. I don't know. Other than that, it was like kind of a C- game. I don't know. But you know what? I just said a lot of bad things. Someone likes this game because it's around either mixed or mostly positive. It's not awful. So I went to Steam reviews to see like what people are saying about it, and this is my favorite one. It's like the 9th best Souls game, but sometimes you want to play more than 8 Souls games. So I guess after you play Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Elden Ring, Neo 1, Neo 2, Sekiro, and Bloodborne, then you can play, oh, hang on a second, Jedi Survivor 1 and 2, Lies of P, Remnant 1 and 2, Black Myth Wukong. Are we counting Hollow Knight? I think we should count Hollow Knight. How about the new Lords of the Fallen game? Maybe you'd attach yourself to like Code Vein was pretty great for what it was. And then maybe Hellpoint. I don't know. If you have other games that we should play before Hellpoint, let me know. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what I should review next in the comments. Have a wonderful day not playing Hellpoint. I'm never touching this game again. Later.